key figures in the history of aesthetics. The first one was Plato, then Kant, then Maritain, and then Heidegger. I do see the parallels in very many things that he picks up on. I mean, in Heidegger, for example, I would see the whole idea that there's this world space created in the work of art. So there's this kind of aura, this kind of opening out to a broader framework, and certainly that's central to what he's after. And certainly in then St. Thomas, and then in Maritain's picking up on that, the idea of the splendor formae. And then all the ways in which that works out in terms of they call it the metaphysical beauty, shining through the virtues, basically, I think. And then the other forms that he worked with. I think it's the there are the moments in which the human being feels somewhat whole, complete in some sense. That corresponds to the idea that is at the center of Hildebrand's work generally, namely the notion of the heart, which I tried to say also is very central in Heidegger. When you contrast meditative thinking with representative calculative thinking, the intellectual part is representative calculative, but then there's the work of the heart in some sense, and meditation is that which opens up that sort of dimension. Yeah, and for Heidegger's claim, and I think this is right, namely that art is the saving grace in the epoch in which we're dominated by a technological way of thinking about things, and everything becomes means to the ends of what we're projecting, and including people, that somehow this call to simply respond to the valuable wherever you find it, and well, even this, the whole notion of metaphysical beauty is the notion, in some sense, that everything has its corresponding beauty. One of my students said this about, you could have a beautifully constructed system of philosophy without even asking whether it's true or not. And it's got me thinking about what I like about doing this kind of holistic retrieval of the circle of concepts that thinker works with is that it's beautiful. It just hangs together and it's attractive. It has its own aura, so to speak, its own splendor. I never thought of that before. Oh, I think a great deal, especially with the artists, especially the last artists were particularly good. But I wasn't aware that Donnie McManus, was doing that kind of work. It's rather splendid in itself, kind of retrieving that more realistic portrayal of the human body. And then Ken Wu's work is really sterling. Well, of course, he works with gold leaf, and that makes it extra splendor. In fact, that was part of the point of it, I think, in the whole tradition. Gold leaf for the background of the Madonna, right? The golden halo suggests that extra aura that is projected by the holy. So we don't remain at the level of abstraction, that we're always down trying to deal with the actual things that affect quote aesthetic experience. I put that in quotes because, as we've talked about it through, there's the aesthete on the one hand, who appreciates beautiful surface, but doesn't really have a sense of being possibly transformed by an aesthetic kind of experience. I was interested in seeing twice the reference to Rilke's on the antique torso of Apollo, and the last famous line, "You must change your life." That's the conclusion of my chapter in Nature, Art Forms, and the World Around Us, and Sculpture. It ends with the picture of Apollo, the torso of Apollo from the Louvre, and then the actual poem itself, which, by the way, just as a sidelight, I had to translate myself because I wanted to use Mitchell translation, which I like very much. I wrote to them, and they wanted me to pay $200 and some to use it. And a friend of mine said, they should pay you for using it as an ad for that. Yeah. I guess there's something, well, I mean, it goes to the idea that the fuller aesthetic experience is not simply one of a nice feeling, but it does something with opening up a different sense, a different light on your life in some sense that comes through when you do have the actual, being addressed by something, whether it be just an item of nature or another person or a work of art or something like this, there is this kind of opening out of a new way of coming at things. It's not necessarily a conceptually articulatable something. It just is that sense of that surplus of the surrounding of the whole that can open up in certain kinds of experiences. Well, the questions were excellent. I enjoyed the discussion circle. There's some that were more shy than others. One guy hardly said anything, and then after my last lecture, he came and talked to me, my arm and leg off. Well, because he's from Notre Dame, and he's eager for more continental orientation, where he got mainly analytical approach to things. So it was kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, the different people that are. One guy was a musician, and even the way he came at things, very reflectively, and it's just interesting to see how him working through things. Well, certainly in terms of the artists, incredibly. And I also learned something important, namely Jonathan Anderson talking about Cage's 40 minutes and 33 seconds, that piece in some sense that Dr. Vanish said that even he could play that one. He's a character, really is. But I just thought it was ridiculous when I first heard about it. And then when he explained it, then it really is kind of out of a Buddhist background to learn to listen to silence in some sense. And I didn't know also that the first place where that was done was in a open air place in the woods. So you had the sounds of the world around you, of the natural things around you, was part of the piece in that sense, that you're listening in silence, and then that's speaking to you in some way. But that changed my way of coming at Cage completely. Well, it was a privilege to be here. I just was very happy I was able to do this. I was going to give Hegel also to the fifth one, and John Henry, with his usual persuasiveness, wanted me to do something about Maritain. And as I said, I hadn't read Maritain complete for 50 years. But it was good coming back to it and working through it and trying to get a hold of what he was doing. And so I learned from that a lot, I think, working through that. In fact, what I learned was basically that what he's doing is a kind of Thomistic extension, that the themes that St. Thomas dealt with, he brought forward into another kind of context, which Gilson didn't like, but I think it spoke truly about the character of modern art. So that was a worthwhile thing. It took me a while, a lot of pain to try to get it together, but I was happy to have done it once the childbirth is over.